Courtrooms aren't just places where justice is served. They're arenas of high-stakes human drama. And on this day, Judge Raymond Porter's courtroom was no different. The usual buzz of lawyers shuffling papers, plaintiffs whispering nervously, and defendants bracing for impact filled the air. But today wasn't just any day. On the docket was Camille Hayes, a local youth basketball coach with a reputation for being tough yet compassionate. She wasn't a stranger to struggle. For years, she poured her heart and her own money into supporting kids who didn't have the means to play. Her case, a breach of contract, the gym she rented for her practices was suing her for unpaid fees. On paper, it seemed straightforward. She owed money. They wanted it back. But as Judge Porter glanced at the case file, something about Camille tugged at him. Her name, her face, it stirred a faint but persistent memory. Still, he brushed it off. His job was to focus on the facts. When Camille stepped forward, her presence commanded attention. She wasn't loud or confrontational. Her confidence came from a place of purpose. Wearing a modest but professional suit, she stood tall as the gym's attorney laid out their case. The lawyer painted her as negligent, someone who failed to honor her commitment. Ms. Hayes owes $5,000 in unpaid fees, and the gym cannot operate without these funds, he argued. Camille's response was measured but powerful. She didn't deny the debt. Instead, she explained why it existed. I didn't fall behind because I was careless, she said, her voice steady. I fell behind because I believe no child should be left out of a game they love just because they can't afford it. The courtroom was quiet. Even Judge Porter, known for his poker face, seemed to be processing her words carefully. And now, if you're a fan of Judge Judy, you're probably thinking she'd have cut through this in seconds. Judy was famous for her no-nonsense approach, quick to sniff out excuses but equally quick to recognize genuine effort. Imagine her sitting in that courtroom, leaning forward with her signature glare. Let me get this straight, she'd say. You made a commitment you couldn't fulfill because you wanted to help kids. Noble, but contracts don't care about good intentions. And she wouldn't be wrong. But here's the thing about Judge Judy. While she was tough, she also had a deep understanding of humanity. She might have ruled against Camille legally, but not without acknowledging the moral complexity of her actions. So, what would Judge Judy have advised Judge Porter? Likely this: stick to the law, but don't ignore the bigger picture. Back in the courtroom, Judge Porter was ready to deliver his verdict. The law was clear: Camille owed the money, but something about her defense, her unwavering dedication to those kids, made this feel like more than just a legal issue. Ms. Hayes, he began, his voice steady but contemplative, your dedication to your community is commendable. However, my role here is not to judge intentions but to uphold the law. The plaintiff's case is valid, and I am ordering you to pay the $5,000 owed. Camille's face was calm, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of disappointment. She nodded respectfully, gathered her documents, and prepared to leave. But as she turned to exit, Judge Porter's clerk approached him with a note. What he read made his breath catch. Your Honor, the note began, Ms. Hayes' coach Camille, your son's basketball coach. The words hit him like a punch. Suddenly, everything clicked. The recognition he'd felt earlier wasn't random. His son, James, had talked about Coach Camille endlessly, how she pushed him to be better, how she believed in him when no one else did. She wasn't just a defendant, she was someone who had profoundly impacted his family. And now, he had just ruled against her. This is where Judge Judy's hypothetical commentary comes in again. She would have called it poetic irony. You didn't know who she was, but that doesn't change the law. What it does change is your understanding of the stakes, she probably quipped. Judge Porter's hands trembled slightly as he set a note down. The courtroom, still bustling with its usual routine, seemed to blur around him. This wasn't just a case anymore, it was a collation of his professional responsibility and a deeply personal connection. He glanced at Camille Hayes, who was quietly organizing her documents at the defense table, unaware of the storm brewing in his mind. The woman he had just ruled against was the very person his son credited for turning his life round. James had described her as more than just a coach, was a mentor, a role model, someone who never let her players give up on themselves. In that moment, Judge Porter was torn. The law demanded impartiality, and he had upheld it in his ruling. But how could he ignore the impact this woman had on his son and countless other kids? Would Judge Judy have handled this differently? If there's one thing Judge Judy was known for, it was her ability to walk the tightrope between legal rigor and moral clarity. She would have likely reminded him, the law is black and white, but life is lived in shades of gray. You can change the ruling, but you can't change the outcome beyond the bench. As Camille prepared to leave, Judge Porter made a decision he'd never made before. Miss Hayes, he called out, his voice steady but firm. I'd like to see both parties in my chambers. Now. Inside the chambers, the tension was palpable. The plaintiff's attorney, clearly caught off guard, shuffled papers nervously, while Camille sat ready poised, her eyes steady on the judge. Judge Porter took a deep breath, weighing every word before speaking. Miss Hayes, Mr. Tillman, he began, addressing the gym owner and his lawyer. This case presents an unusual situation. While my ruling stands as issued, I feel compelled to explore options that may lead to a resolution beyond just a monetary transaction. The plaintiff's lawyer frowned. Your Honor, with all due respect, the case is closed. The ruling is, claims, Hayes owes the sum of $5,000. What else is there to discuss? Porter locked eyes with Camille. This isn't just about the money. It's about what this woman has contributed to our community. Her work with underprivileged kids, including my own son, has had a profound impact. Surely there's a path forward that doesn't strip her of her ability to continue making that difference. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably, but before he could respond, the gym owner, Mr. Tillman, spoke up. Dent, it's not that I don't respect what Ms. Hayes does, but running a gym isn't cheap. If I let one person off the hook, what stops others from following suit? I have a business to protect. Camille broke her silence. I understand, Mr. Tillman. I'm not asking for a free pass. I just need time and perhaps a way to pay you back, without taking resources away from the kids I coach. Her voice was steady but filled with emotion. Porter leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. Mr. Tillman, could there be an arrangement where Miss Hayes works of her dad through community service or coaching programs directly affiliated with your gym? The room fell silent. The idea hung in the air, delicate but compelling. Even the plaintiff's lawyer seemed momentarily caught off guard by the suggestion. Judge Porter's mind raced. Would Judge Judy approve of such an unorthodox approach? Probably. While she was strict about the law, she often sought resolutions that benefited everyone involved. He could almost hear her voice now. If you've got two reasonable adults, why waste time fighting when you can't work together? Tillman leaned back, crossing his arms. That's unconventional, but I'm not against the idea, as long as it's structured and fair. Camille nodded eagerly. I'm more than willing to commit to something like that. My goal has never been to avoid responsibility as to fulfill it, without hurting the kids who rely on me. Porter exhaled deeply, relief washing over him. A path forward was beginning to emerge, one that aligned with both legal and moral responsibilities, but it wasn't over yet. There was still the matter of formalizing the agreement and ensuring both parties left feeling whole. All right, Judge Porter said firmly, here's what we'll do. I'll oversee the drafting of a revised settlement agreement. Miss Hayes, you collaborate with Mr. Tillman to outline a community service plan that meets his needs. Mr. Tillman, you'll agree to defer the financial collection as long as she fulfills her obligations. Does that sound acceptable to both parties? The two nodded cautiously. It wasn't a perfect solution, but there was a start. As Camille left the chambers, she paused to meet Judge Porter's gaze. Thank you, Your Honor, not just for the ruling, but for seeing me as more than just a defendant. Porter gave a faint smile. It's not always easy to balance the scales of justice, but sometimes you have to weigh what's right as well as what's legal. And with that, the case took an unexpected turn that Judge Judy herself might have applauded. Weeks later, the courtroom drama had faded, but the echoes of the case were far from over. The agreement between Camille and Mr. Tillman had become the talk of the town. While some called it a creative solution, others saw it as favoritism, questioning whether Judge Porter's personal connection had clouded his judgment. For Camille, the deal was more than just a way to settle her debt. It was an opportunity to rebuild trust and continue her mission. She had agreed to organize and run weekly basketball clinics at Tillman's gym, focusing on at-risk youth in the community. Her players, many of whom had no idea how close they were to losing their coach, rallied behind her, volunteering to help with the clinics. The first clinic was a packed event, with kids from all over the city showing up. Parents, too, came to watch, curious about the coach who had sparked such controversy. Camille's energy was infectious, her commitment unwavering. She didn't just teach basketball, she taught discipline, teamwork, and resilience. Meanwhile, Judge Porter couldn't ignore the fallout on his end. His colleagues questioned whether he had overstepped his judicial boundaries. "You bend the rules," one judge remarked during a casual discussion in chambers. "What if every defendant starts expecting a deal like that?" Porter's response was measured. "I didn't bend the rules, I enforced the law, and found a solution that worked within its framework. Isn't that what justice is supposed to look like?" Still, the scrutiny weighed on him. He found himself replaying the case in his mind, wondering how Judge Judy would have handled it. Would she have approved of his decision, or called him out for letting his personal life influence his ruling? But as weeks turned into months, the results spoke for themselves. Camille not only fulfilled her obligations but exceeded them. The clinics became a cornerstone of the gym's community outreach, attracting sponsorships and donations that helped Tillman's business thrive. Even James, Porter's son, noticed the change. "Coach Camille's been incredible," he told his father over dinner one night. "She's not just teaching us basketball, she's teaching us how to deal with life. I wish more people could see what she's doing." Porter smiled, though a pang of guilt lingered. He hadn't yet revealed the truth to Camille that her case had been personal from the start. One evening, Porter decided it was time. He arrived at the gym during one of Camille's clinics. She was in her element, demonstrating a play to a group of wide-eyed kids. When she spotted him, her expression shifted to surprise but remained warm. "Your Honor," she greeted him with a respectful nod. "What brings you here?" Porter hesitated, then gestured for her to step aside. "I owe you an explanation," he said, his tone serious. Camille listened as he revealed the truth, that he had known she was James's coach but only realized it during the hearing. Her face remained unreadable as he spoke. When he finished, she paused for a moment before responding. "I won't lie, it's a little unsettling to hear that now. But honestly, it doesn't change how grateful I am for what you did. You didn't let your connection to me dictate your ruling. You found a way to uphold the law and still see the bigger picture. That's rare." Porter felt a wave of relief. "You've taught my son lessons I never could have," he admitted. "It only seemed right to give you the chance to keep doing that for others." Camille smiled. "Well, let's call it even. You gave me the chance to keep coaching. Now, let's get back to the kids who need someone to believe in them." The case became a landmark example of judicial creativity. Law students studied it, local news covered it. Even Judge Judy weighed in during an interview, saying, "The law doesn't have to be code. It's there to protect people and communities." That judge did what many wouldn't have the courage to do, thought outside the box. For Judge Porter, the case wasn't just about Camille or even the law. It was a reminder that justice isn't static, it's dynamic, evolving with the people it serves. And for Camille, it was a turning point, a chance to keep fighting for her players and proving that sometimes justice is about more than just winning a case. If you found this story thought-provoking, hit that subscribe button and check out our next video on another shocking courtroom twist.